Hello everyone, welcome back to another one of my videos, and in this video I'm going to be showing how I would mix and edit a violin. And this is a real violin, it's not a VST, it's a real recording of a violin done by a friend of mine called Jerina. Check out her channel in the description. And yeah, let's get into the video. So this is the raw recording that I've got. It's an old folk song called Scarborough Fair. I think a lot of people would know the song already. I'm actually releasing a folk album, so yeah, wait for that. I'll have a video on that soon. So this is the raw recording. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to look at this waveform and just look at which bits are sticking out. So this section here is already louder than everything else, and this section is already louder than everything else, and maybe that at the end as well. And obviously we could just put a compressor on this and squash that down, but that would sort of ruin the sound of it a little bit, and it wouldn't have as much impact when we do put a compressor on later on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this waveform first, and this is actually something that a lot of people don't know, and it's actually something I didn't know until very recently. So if you click on the draw tool here, you can actually draw on the waveform. So let's try that. So I'm just going to draw little edits on this. I'm going to bring the sound of that down and then back up. So we've just squashed that little thing down, that little section. I'm going to do the same on this as well. So just squash that thing down. So let's just have a listen to that now. I want to make sure I don't have that little like volume fade into it. I want to make sure that that's looking fine to me. So once you've done that, that's sort of like a stage of compression. You could look at it like that. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to select the arrow tool again, and I'm just going to double click on it, and I'm then going to go into Vary Audio and click Edit Audio. And obviously this is a auto tuning thing, so if there's any pitch problems here, I would adjust the pitches. So I'd take the snap off and I would just very slowly increase the pitches of these if there's any pitch problems. I don't think there is on this particular recording. But something else I'm going to use this for is the quantization. So as you can see, you can drag these across and it's basically like a time stretch. So I'm just going to make sure all the notes are perfectly in time. So here you can see one of the notes is there, and I know it should be a quarter note or a quaver note if you're British. So I'm just going to drag that across, and you can also tighten things up. So things like this here, make sure it's on the beat, and then that one on the beat as well. And you can also make some little cuts. So see how there's two notes here, but it's Vary Audio for some reason has detected it as one note. So I'm just going to make a cut, and there we go. So I'm going to go through the whole audio file like that. I'm going to make sure everything's perfectly quantized, there's no pitch problems, and I'm going to avoid this quantized pitch thing because I only want to edit anything that doesn't sound right. I want to leave it as untouched as possible if I can, and definitely not going to mess with formants or anything. So once that's done, then it's ready for effects. So the first effect I'm going to put on, well, first of all I'm going to say make sure this is a stereo channel. If you're working on a mono channel, then you're probably going to want to send it to a stereo group first before, and then put these effects on the group channel. But because I'm working with a stereo audio file here, I'm going to put these effects on to the channel track. So let's go. Right, so the first effect I'm going to put on is an EQ, and I always use frequency. Right, so I'm going to press play. I'm just going to point something out. So our violin is only really playing from 200 Hertz above. So all of this here that you see, there's actually sound detected from the microphone, but it's mainly just room noise from the recording. So we're going to basically just cut all of that out. If I was to leave that in and then start adding compression and things, the compressor would bring this up. It would bring it to the same volume, and you just get all sorts of noises in the background. So I'm going to cut all of that out. I'm going to press play, and I'm going to make sure we don't cut any low notes out. I'm also going to use the cut 96, which is like a really steep cut. So let's do that. This is the lowest part of the melody, so I'm going to play this section. So we've cut out all of that room noise in the background. So we're already cleaning up the sound. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to bring one of these bands in. This is number 2. Make sure it's activated. I'm going to put a high Q on it, so we get a really steep point on the band. And I'm basically just going to filter sweep. I'm going to sweep through, and I'm going to try and detect any frequencies that sound really harsh. Like sometimes you get like a whistle sound, and I'm just going to cut them out. So let's do that. So there's a slight, oh, there's a really harsh sound there. So I'm just going to make a little cut on that frequency. So anything below this middle line is a cut, anything above is a boost. And basically the rules of EQ is basically if you like the sound of something, you would boost it. And if you don't like the sound of something, you would cut it. So for this, at the moment, I'm just going to be cutting. So number 2 is done. Let's try and find another one. So again, really high Q. And I'm just going to filter sweep. There's another harsh sound right there. Let's do a cut on that. And then number 4, again, Q, filter sweep. There's a whistle sound. Let's make a little cut on that. And basically I'm just going to go through all of this and just find all of them little horrible sounds that sound really harsh, and just going to try and cut as many of them as possible out. There's a whistle here. What you're going to find as well is there's a lot of whistle sounds around 2K, so you might want to home in on this area and just try and find all of them little frequency things that sound really harsh and cut them all out. I'm not going to do any more on that. I'm just going to leave it as that, but I'll probably end up using 6 and 7 as well just to cut things out. The next thing I'm going to add is a saturator, Quadra Fuzz version 2, and because we've just cut out the low end, I don't want to have this low end here, so I'm going to drag this up to around 200 Hertz where we just cut from, and I'm going to bypass it. So if I was to put that on that band, then you'd start getting some saturation coming through from this plugin, and this is before compression still, so it would start bringing those up in volume as well. So I want to keep this low end as minimum as possible, so I'm going to bypass all the effects on this low end, And basically I'm just going to turn this up to about a quarter on each of these bands. So that's adding a little bit of fuzz, a little bit of distortion to the signal, creating a bit of warmth. And I have the mix set to 50% on the Quadrifuzz plugin as well. Right, so the next thing I'm going to do is a multi-band compressor. And again, we're going to bypass the low end. Don't want anything coming through on the low end. So basically I'm going to look for about 2, 3, 4 decibel reduction on each of these bands. So I'm just going to bring the threshold down. There's 3. Let's do the same on this one. Oh, that's gone way too far there, up to 5, so reduce that a bit. Let's see if this is fine now. Doesn't seem to be doing anything on this band. That's about fine, that one. A little bit more on band number 2. And on this high end here, it doesn't really matter much about this because there's not much going on that high end. So I'm just going to put the threshold down a little bit, but I'm not really going to read that meter. I'd obviously spend a lot more time doing this, by the way, if it was on an actual track, but this is just a demonstration. After that, I'm going to add another compressor on, just a normal compressor, and I'm going to have the auto release activated and the auto makeup activated. And this is a 2-to-1 compressor with really short attack, really short hold, and 0% dry mix. And I'm just looking for 2 to 3%, or decibels reduction, I should say. So I'm watching this here, looking for the reduction as I bring this threshold down. That looks about right. And then the last effect I'm going to put on this particular channel is a stereo delay, and this is something called a Haas effect, Haas. Spelling was obviously my forte in school. I don't think it was, to be honest, but yeah, stereo delay. And I actually have my stereo delay set up to do this effect automatically because I use it quite a lot. But you basically just want to copy these settings. So 0% feedback on the left hand side, 1-to-1, and it's synced, and there's a 0% dry signal. So, and all the way to the left as well. So this is basically a dry signal coming through, a completely dry signal. And then the right hand side, we want it all the way to the right, 0% feedback again, and 100% wet this time. And also we want it as around 10 to 30 milliseconds. So if you don't know how to set milliseconds, you just click the sync button and then adjust this dial here. So I'm going to do about 10 milliseconds. And this creates a stereo effect. It doesn't sound like a delay, it's just a stereo effect. So I'll show you what that sounds like. And then if I mute it, so that's the normal sound, mono, and that's stereo. So that's basically getting the sound as fat as possible. So we've got compression, we've got saturation, and we've got this Haas effect from the stereo delay. We've also EQ'd all of the horrible sounds out of the violin. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to send this channel to an effects channel. So I'm just going to right click the channel and go add effects channel to selected channels. And I'm going to add the Roomworks effect, which is a reverb. Make sure it's stereo. and I'm going to call it Violin Effects. Okay, and if you do it this way by right clicking and doing the add effects channel, it automatically does the sends for you. So we've sent it straight to the violin effects here. Make sure this is always like 0.00 as well. You can move this bar to minus whatever, but if you keep it as 0.00 and make sure it's orange, because the blue one is post fader, you want it pre fader. And yep, so all of these effects now are going to be on the violin effects channel. So this is all reverb effects. So we've got the room works, and I don't want a lot of reverb. I'm just going to put a short background reverb on. I'm going to put the mix to 100%, and I'm going to reduce some of the pre-delay. So I don't want any of that like echoey sound. And yeah, just reduce a little bit of the high end as well, and that should do it. And I'm going to fatten up this reverb as well, similar to what we did with the violin. I'm going to add a quadrifuzz. Again, I'm going to bypass the low end, and I want this to be like super saturated, make it as fat as possible. So I'm going to have a really quite a lot of saturation on. You can even reduce the width on this as well. Maybe put a delay on one of them. And then the next thing I'm going to do is a compressor. I forgot what it was then. A compressor. And this is just to compress the reverb now. So we've already compressed the violin. So now I want the reverb to be compressed as well. So looking at around 2 to 3 decibels again. And this compression will really bring out the tail of the reverb in the mix. And the last thing I'm going to put on is a stereo imager. So it's in the spatial settings here. And this will stop any of the phasing issues. So I'm going to make sure this, if you don't know how to use one of these phase things, it's basically 0 is really wide, +1 is mono, and -1 means you've got phasing issues. So I'm going to want to change this width until we never go past 0, but I want to get it as close to as possible to 0. So I'm ignoring these at the moment. This is low, low mid, high mid, and then high end. I'm just going to ignore these and just concentrate on this low end. And for the low end, you want it to be quite mono. And then the next one, the low mid, that's going over 0, so bring it down. And again with the high mids. That's looking nice. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's how I would mix a violin. I'm going to show you before and after now. So let me just open up the other mixer. I can click this as a bypass on all the effects. So this is before effects. And then this is after. I forgot to mention as well, the last thing I would do is bring the reverb volume down and then just slowly bring it up. So that's the dry signal. Just make sure you get it so that you can just hear the reverb. let's listen that, bypass the effects. So that's dry, that's how it was. So that's a massive difference just on that violin sound, and that's only took me about 10-15 minutes. So yeah, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and if you want to subscribe to my channel, then that would help me out so much. I'm on my way to 3,000 subs, trying to get there by the end of this year. So yeah, subscribe and click like on this video, and leave any comments that you have in the comments below. And definitely check out my friend's channel, Jerina. She's a violinist and she sings as well. Yeah, there's going to be loads of songs being uploaded soon, so I'll leave her description in the channel. Hang on. No, I've got that the wrong way around. I'll leave her channel in the description. Yep. She's going to be appearing on my folk album as well, which is where this violin track has come from, so that'll be out soon. Check that out on Spotify, iTunes, Apple, whatever it is that people listen music on. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.